This study guide will help you learn ideas and concepts in art and design.
Symbolism. Symbolism is a 19th century artistic movement which came after realism. Before symbolism, most paintings were realistic, done from observation of portraits or landscapes. Symbolism gave artists a chance to create paintings from their imagination, stories, myths, or religious events. In these paintings, they would create symbolic meanings from the use of their imagination. These two artists we chose were a part of this movement, Johan Voornprikker. Johan was a Dutch painter and designer. He was an important figure in religious art. His most famous painting is The Bride, which was done in 1893. In this painting, the artist has chosen to concentrate on the innocent, pure side of a female. He shows this by using the symbol of a bride and the colour white that represents pure and untouched. He has also painted spring flowers like tulips and sweet peas, representing the female's virginity because men have not deflowered her. The tulips could also be looked at as the men's genitals, which is a symbol of the men's lust for women. By placing the tulips below the female, the artist gives the impression that the men are trying to trap her and come up beneath her to put their mark on her. This object also seems to be wearing a crown made out of thorns on top of it. The shape itself looks like a cross. Both things might represent Jesus and the Holy Church. This could be suggesting that the bride is marrying the church, and so the church is protecting her from the world of men.
Gustav Klimt. Gustav Klimt was born in Vienna. He is well known for his golden vase, where artworks were made from gold leaf, which is gold hammered into extremely thin sheets. This painting is called Der Hoffnung 2, which is translated to In Hope 2. It included women, children and pregnancy, which were rare in the history of art. There is a skull rested above the woman's stomach that gives the impression her baby has died. With other women bowing their heads, it looks like they are praying or possibly mourning. The woman isn't fully naked, as she is covered with a colourful cloak that hangs over her shoulders. It is full of positive and cheerful colours. It could be that the mother wants to protect her unborn child, and the coat symbolises protection, security, and perhaps home. Although it is sad and upsetting, the cloak brightens the image up and brings a positive attitude as if it was hope. Hope that baby is still alive. This could be looked at as general life, as babies can be born in good conditions, but some babies don't make it, which is very unfortunate. Babies are just at a beginning of their lifetime, but there is just as much risk of death as those at the end of their lifetime. Next, we will go on to Surrealism and Dada. The start of World War I caused artists, writers and intellectuals to flee to Switzerland for refuge. They were fed up with what was happening around them, and so they expressed their emotions through their art. These artworks were sarcastic, silly or witty because of their anger and hatreds towards nationalism, racialism and materialism. The public were repulsed with this new type of art, which encouraged them to continue. Marcel Duchamp was a Dada artist born in Normandy in France. He drew a moustache and a goatee, graffiti style, on a postcard of the Mona Lisa, then added a caption, LHOOQ, which means she's hot in the arse in English. It quickly became the icon of the Dada group. Duchamp said that the Mona Lisa becomes a man, not a woman disguised as a man, but a real man. It is not an attack of the mass-produced tourist icon the Mona Lisa had come, but it was an interpretation of it. Some people believe that it showed Leonardo da Vinci was a homosexual and saw a male form in the female form. Duchamp's Mona Lisa was a simple joke, just humour with no violence.
Surrealism developed out of the Dada activities, and the movement began in the 1920s in Paris, where it brought members from other countries. It They included visual arts and writing of what they saw in society. They expressed their feelings and opinions, but also included visual and imaginations. Max Ernst was a German-born painter, sculptor and printmaker. He was one of the leading surrealists. This piece is called Levade. They were developed from frottage technique, as each drawing was made by placing sheets of paper over different objects such as floorboards, leaves, and then rubbed with a stick of graphite. Through precise selection, combination, control of texture, he was able to build up surprising images of fantasy, landscape, plants and creatures.
Dada was a wartime movement where all around them was slaughter. The artists advertised themselves as being anti-art, but Zurich was against traditional art, therefore they wanted to make art in new ways. Dada had no leaders. The movement ended after a few years. Surrealism, on the other hand, had a leader, Andre Breton. The group lasted for 20 years. The movement also emerged in a decade of peace and prosperity. Surrealism could be understood as healing and reconstructive, replacing an aggressive and public voice with a private exploration into the recesses of the unconscious. They seek new meaning, another meaning, an unexpected meaning, a surreal meaning, and they wanted to live to mean something. For Dada, life had no meaning, no reason, no purpose, and no logic.
Modernism. Modernism is an art movement which dominated Western culture from 19th century to about 1960. It was meant to be a whole new movement separated from every other movement and style before.
This is because they wanted to produce the new and modern art or architecture. It grew out of the Impressionist rejection of the imitation of life.
Modernism, especially in architecture, was a form of utopia for the artists who practiced in this style, and their art was formed from the desire to take the unorganised and over-the-top art and buildings from the past and make them into organised, simple art for the future. They wanted to get rid of the flowery decor of older buildings and design buildings in a more simple mathematical style with clear colours like white and black. They wanted the cities to be set in patterns and with the buildings to solve their problems. These problems would be issues like not enough room for people to live and grow. These ideas came from the need to make people equal, to make the rich and the poor the same. They believed that if all buildings looked the same and were simple, there would not be a rift between the rich and the poor and between men and women. They also showed that they wanted there to be equality between men and women by encouraging women to make work and be recognised as an artist. The example shown is of a building by Mies van der Rohe.
Kandinsky was a Russian painter and graphic artist, and he was one of the masters of modern art. This piece is called Composition and was painted whilst Kandinsky taught at Bauhaus. It illustrates elements from constructivism and the school's own ethos of modernism. Bauhaus is a school of design established in 1919, and it is well known for its designs of objects based on functionalism and simplicity. Combining aspects of all three movements, he created flat planes of colour and linear areas. He has brought the idea of movement through the painting, the impression of sound and music. It is definitely clear that this piece is a piece of artwork which shows Kandinsky's ideas about modern art. He has used shapes like triangles, circles, and checkboard areas with lines, and they all seem to be placed in the perfect place that continues the movement. The influence of religious and cultural beliefs. Russian icon. Artwork would be painted on wood and then surrounded by silver. The religion is Russian Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox Church. These will be placed on walls in houses so that people can pray in front of them. This is similar to Zen, as artists would be in meditation, but for this, viewers would use it as an icon to pray in front of. In this image, there seems to be halos around the figures. Halos are precious. It is a precious object because they use precious materials too.
Japanese wood block print. This piece would show the culture of a geisha house. It would also be used as advertising for geisha houses. It was also commonly used to produce famous landscape pieces. Each colour would be layered and printed on top of other colours. This technique and style inspired Impressionism. This technique is called ukiyo. Tanzanian tinga tinga. The environment of East Africa inspired these. They were all decorative, but also done in a way where they could be reproduced. It is hard to tell the difference between each piece of work, and you cannot tell who the artist was because they all learnt the technique the same way.
Australian Aboriginal art. Australian Aboriginal art represents Dreamtime, which is an era of their earliest ancestors and what they thought of and believed of the world. Some pieces of art are read as maps, as they include things like wells, footprints, and track symbols. The colours were from rocks in their environment, and they didn't use any paintbrushes, but they used sticks to dab. You can tell by the dotted appearance in most pieces. These were done hundreds of years ago, when people didn't travel, and they were quite isolated, so influences were from around them and from their own cultures.
Zen artists, Japan and China. Zen Buddhists influenced these pieces of art. They were usually of bamboo because it resembles stone. It moves in the wind, and because it is flexible and strong, it doesn't break. These can be painted with brush and ink on white paper. The brushes could be shaped to suit the technique the artist wishes to use. Whilst creating these, the artist would be in a state of meditation.
Islamic art. Islamic art is restricted to only calligraphy and geometry because Islamic religions don't allow images of living things. Geometry is thought to reflect the language of the universe to help the believers to reflect on life and greatness of creation. Circles have no end as they are infinite. Complex geometric designs give the impression of unending repetition, which helps a person think of infinite nature of Allah. Calligraphy would usually be meaningful phrase from the Quran. John Martin, The Last Judgment. John Martin was a very religious man and liked to paint events. He painted scenes of the end of the world or natural disasters. Each piece is shocking and realistic.
Indian art of God Krishna. Indian art is a mixture of religious beliefs. This piece of art is of the Hindu god Krishna and his wife. The artwork was done to a small scale as they were to be put in books, and the art was so small that their brushes only had one hair. The paint was made from the rocks from where they lived, and they used seashells to hold the paint. The art was mostly of kings and of gods.
Goddess Tara, white-hued, Tibetan Buddhist. The artists lived in the mountains. They believed in God and goddess and demons, and these beliefs influenced their art. They believed that if they painted images of gods and goddesses and hung the paintings on cloth around their homes, the gods would protect them from demons. The paints were always in bright colours to show the wealth and power of the gods. They also painted the gods sitting on a lotus flower because they believed it was a symbol of goodness. Pablo Picasso, an innovative artist. Pablo Picasso went through different stages of different inspirations.
Mr. Mingul, 1901, was inspired by Impressionism. The technique is similar to Cézanne's style and is very serious and professional painting.
The Old Guitarist, 1903. This is an example of artwork from the Blue Phase. His close friend committed suicide, which led to Picasso's depression. His work was gloomy, dark, and related to death. Family of Sultanbank, 1905, was from a period called Pink or Rose Phase. This was when he was coming out of his depression, and his work was happy, colourful, bright, and enthusiastic.
La Demoiselle de Begon, 1907 was inspired by African art. It inspired him to create seminal pieces completely new. Free Women, 1907, shows the beginning of Cubanism, which was an inspirational movement for Picasso. He tried to create pieces of art while interpreting the shapes instead of clearly visual with detail.
Head of Women, 1909. Picasso was never satisfied with using just one technique or material. He wanted to branch out and experiment with everything. Sculpture and the 3D form inspired him to create new pieces of work.
Still Life with Bottle of Rum, 1911, was inspired by Cubism. Cubism was inspired by the idea of painting more than one view of an object. At the time, photography could capture a view of an object with one click. Seated Woman, 1922, was when Picasso was inspired by a classical phase, Greek statues, and would paint portraits in the sinister style.
Head of Women, 1931, was put together with natural forms. It was in a biomorphic style. Why was Picasso an innovative artist? Pablo Picasso was an innovative artist because of his range and breadth of artwork. He varied materials, ideas, and imagery. He never seemed to be happy with just one material or technique. So one reason why he was an innovative artist was because he experimented with different methods and different mediums. He explored painting, sculpture, printmaking, and mixed media. He started off being influenced by his feelings and emotions. Picasso was an artist for a very long time, and he created work in quite a few different movements. That is another reason why he was an innovative artist. Lastly, he was also inspired by cultures. The African art in particular inspired a whole range of pieces of artwork.